Hello and hello! Welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk about my favourite books because, I mean, that's what we're here for, right? This video I'm really excited for because obviously they're my favourite books and I cannot wait to talk about them. So these books I mostly discovered, back in my Kindle days. I've read and loved these books for ages. Loads of nostalgia, but they're still great today. Obviously I have loads of good books, but these is my small prize collection, 9s and 10s only, favourites list. Some are known, some are not so well known, but let's get talking about them because I cannot wait. I have 5 books here to talk about, or book series to talk about, so let's get into my list. Book number 5, we have Delirium, or the Delirium trilogy, which are right up the top of my shelf here. Hold on one second. So, we have Delirium, we have Pandemonium, and we have Requiem, which are all by Lauren Oliver. I'm just going to hold up the first book because I struggled. So, yeah, this one I have in paperback, which I got all of them in Waterstones. I have one in hardcover, which is signed. I'm going to have to show you just because I want to show off. But yeah, so I have all these and I bought these on a whim in Waterstones, took them on holiday. I fell in love with them and I've reread them a million times. They've been all over. Look how bow-legged and loved they are. I absolutely love this series. The writing in it is just beautiful. Like, Lauren Oliver is a poet as far as I'm concerned. Her descriptions are amazing, her structures, she's a great writer. The story, like, I'm not massively into like love stories, Romeo and Juliet type, not really my thing, but this totally changes the bar. Like, this makes it so much more intense, so much more actiony and emotional, like from a place which I can understand, which I don't know, I guess that's the point, right? I love all the characters in this, the descriptions, the location, everything about this series is just pure genius. I love how she changes in the second and third book, where she changes from like past and present, and then she changes the two characters' POVs and they like kind of all line up, and it like the pacing. Some of her chapters are super short and others are super not. She has a very unique way, I think, with writing books. But the concept for this, I think, is great. What if... I realise I haven't actually told you what it's about in case you don't know. Just in case you're unaware. Delirium is a trilogy about a girl called Lena. And she lives in a world where basically she's in the United States and love is forbidden. Like, they think it's a disease, which is delirium, the technical name for like the chemical of love. And it's forbidden. They think it's a disease because it causes all these horrible after effects, and it's just seen as something contagious over there. You get like matched up, there's this, it's really controlled, and Lena really thinks love is the worst thing possible. She is terrified of ever contracting delirium. But she does, and she realises that it's not what they told her it was. She realises a lot of lies and a lot of, how they're not keeping them safe, they're controlling them. And she falls in love, she breaks rules, she completely has a great character arc. And just the way the story is told and the concept of it, it's just... I love this book series. I will always, go back and read it every now and then. And it's one of my favourites. So that is number 6. Number 5. Okay, so the next book I want to talk about is number 4, which is called Mind Jack. Now I realise this one is probably lesser known. So this is Mind Jack by Suzanne Cain Quinn. And this is a trilogy. There are other books, but I will get to that later. There is the main trilogy, that's what I'm talking about. So these 3 books, oh, they're so good. They're so unknown, but they are brilliant. Again, the concept is what tends to draw me into books. I'm a dystopian girl, I love dystopian, and a great concept, and I'm there. And This one, this is about a world, because I'm going to actually describe what happens in this book this time. In this world, everyone can read minds. Basically, all the humans have evolved, and you just broadcast your thoughts. You don't try, you just have to. Which is probably terrifying, because who wants every thought they ever have to broadcast to everyone around them? That's not fun. But in this world, that's what everyone does. That's how the world is. And they change around puberty to be able to like do the mind cast. And there is a girl called Kira who has not yet changed, and basically she is seen as the total undercast of the world. She's a total loser. Everyone thinks she's like something less because she's ordinary, she's not a reader. And yeah, she's pretty much as low on the social scale as you can get. And then one day she does change, but not into the reader. She changes into something else entirely, and she can control minds instead of reading. And she goes into this whole world of just horrid, like she realises she's not the only mind controller, and there's this whole world of danger and underground and concentration camps and all this crap which she gets sucked into, and she ends up having to break out and be the voice of why she's not a monster just because she can do it. Just because she can control her mind doesn't mean she's some evil monster. And the whole trilogy is just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's not like, I've never heard it talked about on BookTube, and we're going to change that, guys. We're changing that, because this is a great book, and I think if you're looking for a great dystopian with an interesting concept and great characters, read this, because it is such a good book. All three are great. Oh, it's just so amazing, and I can never stop going on about how much I love it. One side note to add, Susan Cain Quinn is currently right now releasing added trilogy to this series. It was a while ago since this was published, and now she's like going back into the world, and I was so excited and so nervous because it ended so perfectly. Like, why continue something that's ended so great? But she continued on with a new main character, and the book was amazing. I read it while I went on a trip to Ireland. It was just fantastic. And then something happened, and it was the worst possible thing that could have happened, and it killed the entire thing. The whole new trilogy has been butchered, and I was in denial. I was like, no, surely not. And I kept reading, and my heart sunk every page. And now there's this whole new trilogy coming out, and I'm just, nope, nope, nope. It's like, you know, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, how all the Harry Potter fans just pretend it doesn't exist. That's kind of what I'm doing with the newest trilogy. The original trilogy will always be great, and that will never change, so I'm just ignoring the part that I don't like, and I will always love Mind Jack the trilogy, because it is just time for number 3. And now we have, yeah, a really, really obvious one, The Hunger Games. Why? It's great. There's a reason why it's so popular. Yeah, it's an obvious one, but there is a super reason for it. It's because it is everything you want in a YA dystopian. It perfectly sums up everything that is great about that genre and why I love it so much. Yeah, it got me into YA dystopian, so there's that. But even now, it's still like there is no, you know, sometimes when some nostalgia takes over and you go back and look at something and you're like, oh, it's not as great as I thought. That has not happened with The Hunger Games. Like, it's still amazing today. It has not changed in my eyes. It's still great. The characters are great, the concept and the story is amazing, just the whole plot and the way it builds, just, it is great storytelling. It's still perfect, and I will still always love it. So there's not really much more to say about this one, since most people know what it's about and everyone knows why it's great. So I think I'm just going to move on to number 2. Now, this one's a little bit more obscure. Yeah, again, it's popular for a reason, people, and that's Harry Potter. Subi, it's great, and I wasn't going to go a favourite video without talking about Harry Potter, because it just is one of my favourites. Now, I am not going to claim that that's mainly because of nostalgia. I am currently 22, and when this came out I was a bit young and also couldn't read because issues. So I did not grow up with Harry Potter. I actually watched Harry Potter more when I was older, you know, after it had all come out. I think I watched a couple of them in the cinema, like the later ones, but not really. I got into Harry Potter much later than most, like in my teens, late teens, and I never actually read Harry Potter until I was 19. Yep, not a child, not a middle grade age. I read it at 19 and it blew my mind. Like, I already loved Harry Potter from the movies, but as we all know, books are better. And I read these books and I realised, that was the first time it hit me, wow, books cannot be beaten. Like, they are just so amazing. They were so much better than the films. They had so much more detail, description, emotion. The characters were more, it was better in every possible way. And I love Harry Potter. It's magical, it's intense, there's so many great topics that are brought up. It's, in my eyes, more mature than people give it credit. There are a lot of like mature themes in it, and as far as I'm concerned, it goes for any age. You could be 5, you could be 50, everyone can relate to Harry Potter. There are so many characters, there's so much magic, there's so much realism, even though it's a magical world. Like the politics, the war, like the school, all of that, there's a relatable element, which is why I think the world loves it, because it brings relatable and magical together, and it just creates this beautiful thing. Yep, it's in my favourites list because it's Harry Potter, of course! Hufflepuff, by the way. And moving on to my last book, my favourite of all the favourites, and you've probably not heard of it. So yeah, the famous ones are 2 and 3 in this list, because my favourite book series of all time is Unwind by Neal Shusterman, or Shusterman? By Neal. And oh my god, if you have never heard of this book or seen this book, strap in, because I never stop talking about it. It is, okay, so what is it, Lucy? We've never heard of this. What is it? If you have heard of it, by the way, I love you. But if you haven't heard of it, this is what it is. So it is a YA dystopian, because, like, are you getting a theme here? I hope you're getting the theme. It is a YA dystopian about a world. Again, concept of YA dystopians just drag me in. In this world, they have scientifically been able to use every single part of a body in transplant. So the blood, the head, all the organs, all the skin, they can use everything pretty much. And they can use it in transplants and surgery and everything. And children are basically like between the ages of 13 and 17 or 18, depending on what part of the book, that you can decide your child was a mistake and abort them, because abortion is basically illegal. There was this war over abortion, you know, pro-life and the Choice Brigade, there's all this stuff, and they had a war, and the only thing they could agree on was that they should abort them when their children are older, not when they're born. So they have to kind of like prove themselves, and their parents can choose to abort them between those like teenage years. So obviously this is why it's a YA dystopian, because it's about the kids who are unwound or run away from being, so they avoid being unwound. You know, is it death, is it life, what's the soul, where does it go, do you live on? And this book is just, the concept is amazing. The themes it brings up, like, oh my god, it talks about things and it really makes you think, like, about your soul and life and literally everything. The characters, oh, you know I love a book with great characters, and this has got the most amazing cast. There's 3 main characters, Connor, Rissa and Levi, Lev, I call him Lev, and they are, very rarely in a book are the main characters my favourites. The 2 of my favourite characters in this series are Connor and Rissa, because they're just so great and I love them so much. This book is funny, this book is intense, this book made me cry, it made me laugh, it made me happy, sad. Oh, it's just so beautiful. I just love it. There's 4 books in this series. Unwind, Unholy, Unsold and Undivided. It is the most beautiful series. It's so perfectly written, the structure is amazing with the chapters. It's just so well constructed. The pacing, the storyline, it's just my favourite series, and I don't think it gets enough love. Where is everyone talking about this book? I've loved this book for years. No one talks about this book. Why? It is amazing. So please look at this book and read it if you get a chance. Because seriously, I don't know how anyone could not like this book. If you don't, I mean, you're allowed, your opinion, but it gives me so much joy. I reread it all the time, and I think you should too. There's a new series that Neal Shusterman is currently releasing at the moment called Scythe, which I actually have up here. You've probably heard of it because it is getting really popular, and I'm like, yay, go Neal! Because he deserves all the appreciation, and maybe because people are loving that series, they're like, what else has Neal Shusterman done? And they'll look up Unwind, fall in love with Unwind, and then the Unwind fan base can get bigger. So I love this series, and that is my favourite book series of all time. Of all the books I've ever read, still up there, and I take something pretty special to beat Unwind, to be honest. Now, there was only 5 books in this list, 5 book series, and obviously I have loads of books I love. So it's a very exclusive list. It's very difficult to get on. So now I thought I'd go through some honourable mentions of books I really love, which are in, the 9 and 10s, and tell you about those just for a little bit because they deserve a mention. Okay, so here is some honourable mentions that I'd like to throw in. If you don't know, I rate all my books on a scale of 0 to 10. I do the stars on Goodreads as well, but the stars aren't enough. Like, I need a bigger range to rate things than that. I read a lot of books, I need a bigger range. So I always rate from 9 to 10, and I do 0.5s because whatever. And all these books are 9 or 10s, so all these books are 9s. But this is my honourable mentions list for my favourite book. So first I'll go through the series I really like. So these are the series that I love that are 9s, but they just didn't make it on the list, just barely. And the first one I'd like to mention is The Gatekeeper's Saga. Now, this book series, there are so many in this series. Like, it's a long series, it's a lot, but they are so good. It's all about Greek mythology and the Greek gods, which I have an interest in. It's not a middle grade like Percy, so it's like taking the Greek gods but YAing them up. I'm gonna go with YAing, even though that sounds weird. And it's about this girl, and she basically gets tangled up in all the gods' mess, and she meets this god, and it's just such a great story. I love the representation of the gods in this, because like there's so many different representations of the gods. You could go Hercules from Disney, you could go with Percy Jackson, you could go with God of War. The gods are always represented in a new way. So you could love a god's way represented in one form of medium and then not in another. And this was my favourite representation of the gods that I've ever seen, read, heard, whatever. It was my favourite way that I've ever read them. They're just, I thought they were so good. The whole story, it was like 7 books I think? It's been a long time since I read it, but I did not think it lost any quality throughout the entirety of those books. And that's pretty special, to have that many books and not decline in quality. Kind of like, Harry Potter, it has not gone down in quality, it has remained solid, and I just thought the whole story was amazing, the characters were great, it was so magical and intense and big, and I really loved that series, and I need to reread it because I've only read it once. But it's such a long series, it's kind of intimidating to reread. I kind of want to get an audiobook for it if I can, because that would be good. So I listen to Harry Potter a lot, way more than I actually read it, because it's just so easy to listen to. So I'd love to have an audiobook of that, because it would be really cool. So, that's one of the honourable mentions on this list. Another series, I've already kind of mentioned it, so spoilers. Percy Jackson. Again, Greek gods, it's great. I mean, you know this series, right? It's funny, it's actiony, the characters are great. I love it, it's brilliant. It's also a book that my nephew, my boyfriend's nephew, my boyfriend's nephew. He really likes the series as well, which is cool because I can relate to the kids. And I love the series. It was so much fun to read. I remember finishing the end and being like, wow, it being so epic and fun, and I love this series, so it goes on the honourable mentions series list. The last kind of series that's on the honourable mentions is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I think I have it. Hold on one sec. Ta-da! I'm not going to get it out of its box set, but because, I mean, you can see it. So it's heavy, but we're going to go with it. So this is the Miss Peregrine's trilogy. If you don't know, it's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, Hollow City, and Library of Souls. And this trilogy was so good. It was just, I kind of had to read it because I'd heard so many great things, and I did, and it was magical and fun, and just so, I don't know what it is about it, but there's something so cool and lovable about it. Something so comforting almost. I don't even know what I'm saying, but I love this series. All three were brilliant. I loved the film, but read these, and again, you know, books will always beat the film, and there's so much detail in these, and of course the second two books I had no idea what was coming, and the whole thing was brilliant. I loved it, and it will always remain, and I really want to reread this one because I loved reading it, and I used to reread my favourite books all the time, constantly, and now I've got so many books that I just don't get a chance to do rereads, which is kind of a shame because I used to reread my favourite books just on loop, which was, you know, not, also I wanted more books, but I think I kind of need to find a balance between rereading and reading new, because it's hard to make that balance, and I gotta try harder, so would love to get to this book again because it was brilliant and I loved it, and it's on my honourable mentions list. Alright, so next on my honourable mentions list, I'm going to go through a few standalones because I prefer series. There's usually so much more detail, so much more story, adventure. Usually if it's a series it would be better, but there are standalones that are good, and even though they don't make up my favourite list, these are the best standalones that I have. Some of them are first books in a series which the rest isn't out yet, so kind of their series, but to me right now they're standalones, so I've kind of put them in this section. So the first one is called Echoes, and it is, oh my god, you've probably not heard of it. I found it on a whim. I think Amazon just was like, how about this book? Never heard of it. And I read it. Oh my god, it's so good. Now this book is about a girl who's a hacker. She's an online hacker and she does lots of hacking jobs, and she's basically one of the best hackers. And she has a whole community online which she goes on, and they hack together. She gets involved in a serious plot filled with mystery and danger, and she has to hack her way out, but she has to leave her room, and actually she's been caught, you know, there's someone knows who she is and they could come and find her, so she has to actually go out in person and trust people that she doesn't know from the internet that are supposed to be her friends, but she trusts no one. And the whole story was action-packed, mysterious, the characters were great, and it was such an amazing book. It was a standalone, completely a standalone, but it was so much fun. I enjoyed it so much, and I've never heard of this book. So if you're looking for a new read, and if that sounds interesting to you, because it was to me, I mean, Hacker Girl, yes please, I've not read a book like that, and seriously, it was good, so I would totally recommend it. It is definitely on my favourites list, 9 out of 10. I love this book, and I, again, need to reread, because it's so good, and it's one book, so I can probably read it again fairly quick, and just recommend this book. The writing is great, action, mystery, it's just so good to read, and I love the characters, and I could talk about this so much, but you know, there's a lot of spoilery things, so I'm not going to, but read it, come back to me, and we can talk about that book. Another book on my standalone list is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Now this one's a lot more popular, so you've probably heard of it. Actually, the film came out pretty recently, so you've probably definitely heard of it now, even if you're not a book person, because it's blown up. When I was in America, oh my god, the amount of marketing out there. How many posters for Ready Player One? They were everywhere. It's crazy. I have not seen the film, so I'm kind of nervous about that film. I mean, the book was so great, and I just personally cannot see how they would have done it in a film format. So I'm kind of scared to see it. I probably will at some point, but tell me, did you like the film or not? Did it live up? What do you think? I'm probably gonna go into it in a I will give it its chance, but don't compare it because that ruins it kind of attitude. So, but yeah, I loved this book. It was so much fun. I loved basically a love letter to the 80s, and I was fine with that. Personally, I'm a 90s kid, but I loved all the 80s references, the video games, the just so much nerdy things. This was basically a nerd wet dream. It was so good. It was so nerdy, and a lot of people said it had a lot of info dumps in it, and I suppose it did, but none of that really bothered me because all the info dumpy stuff interested me, so I was not bored. I love the structure, I love the characters, I just love how the action played out, how like the Easter egg hunt and the whole adventure and journey of that, the structure of that I thought was really good, the adventure, and I really loved the book. I loved it. I can't really say much more. I thought it was so much fun, and that's what it was all about, fun. And it took me away. I was completely on another planet while reading it. So many shocking parts I didn't expect, and it was a great book, so I'm in love with it, and that's why it's on this list. One on this list is one I've read pretty recently, and that is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I think Jessica Townsend, can you see this? There you go. Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, The Tales of Morrigan Crow. This was a middle grade story, but before we get to that, look at this cover. Isn't it pretty? Wait for it, because this is... what does it look like naked, you wonder? I'm going to show you. Look how pretty it is. Look, just look at this. Have you ever seen a naked book this pretty? I don't think you have. I mean, look at it. It's so pretty. Anyway, this is a middle grade story about a girl who lives in this weird fantasy kind of world, and we got a lot of kind of sad childhoodness going on. Think Harry Potter, you know, girl's not had a good life. Basically, she's told she's cursed, and everything that goes wrong in her town is her fault, and her family basically does not like her, and she's told on her 11th birthday she will die. So, fun times! But instead, she gets whisked away to this magical place that's just so weird and whimsical and bizarre, and she has to basically stay there, and the struggles of not being collected by the death, and she has to earn her place there against all this other stuff going on. And it's the first in a series, I think. It was really, really good. Now, I'm not going to say this lightly, but this is the first ever like middle grade book that gave me Harry Potter vibes. Gonna say it. It's got no wizards, there's no school of magic, there's none of that. The story is nothing like Harry Potter, but the magic, the whimsy, the age of the character, the bad childhood of the character, I mean, there are similarities, but the thing that makes me think of Harry Potter with this is the magical feeling you get of reading it. That feeling of home, of whimsy, of strangeness that you love, and of being comforted, and it's just such a magical place, and that's kind of why I think it gives me Harry Potter vibes. Not because of any plot per se, it's totally different, but the feeling you get while reading it, definitely Harry Potter vibes. And oh my god, if you have not read this book, it is so good. Warning, the next book's not out yet, and I really want it because the ending of this made me want it, and now I have to wait, and I'm not good at waiting for books. I like marathoning. Anyway, I'm gonna stop whinging. Come on, Lucy, grow up. I'm gonna be patient like a good Hufflepuff and wait for the next book. Even as hard for a Hufflepuff because I want this book so bad. One on this list is one I've read pretty recently, and that is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. See? Jessica Townsend? Can you see this? There you go. Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, The Tales of Morrigan Crow. This was a middle grade story, but before we get to that, look at this cover. Isn't it pretty? Wait for it, because this is... what does it look like naked, you wonder? I'm going to show you. Look how pretty it is! Look, just look at this. Have you ever seen a naked book this pretty? I don't think you have. I mean, look at it! It's so pretty! Anyway. Anyway. So this is a middle grade story about a girl who lives in this weird fantasy kind of world, and we got a lot of kind of sad childhoodness going on. Think Harry Potter, you know, girls know how to good life. Basically, she's told she's cursed and everything that goes wrong in her town is her fault, and her family basically does not like her, and she's told on her 11th birthday she will die. So, fun times! But instead, she gets whisked away to this magical place that's just so weird and whimsical and bizarre, and she has to basically stay there, and the struggles of not being collected by the death, and she has to earn her place there against all this other stuff going on. And it's the first in a series, I think. It was really, really good. Now, I'm not going to say this lightly, but this is the first ever like middle grade book that gave me Harry Potter vibes. Gonna say it. It's got no wizards, there's no school of magic, there's none of that. The story is nothing like Harry Potter, but the magic, the whimsy, the age of the character, the bad childhood of the character, I mean, there are similarities, but the thing that makes me think of Harry Potter with this is the magical feeling you get of reading it. That feeling of home, of whimsy, of strangeness that you love, and of being comforted, and it's just such a magical place, and that's kind of why I think it gives me Harry Potter vibes. Not because of any plot per se, it's totally different, but the feeling you get while reading it, definitely Harry Potter vibes. And oh my god, if you have not read this book, it is so good. Warning, the next book's not out yet, and I really want it because the ending of this made me want it, and now I have to wait, and I'm not good at waiting for books. I like marathoning. Anyway, I'm gonna stop whinging. Come on, Lucy, grow up. I'm gonna be patient like a good Hufflepuff and wait for the next book. Even as hard for a Hufflepuff because I want this book so bad. Okay, and last but not least on this list, I've got one more honourable mention, and that is the book called The Saviour's Champion by Jenna Moreci. Now this is the most recent release. I've read this really recently. I read an arc of it. It's one of the few arcs I've gotten received. Thanks, Jenna, for giving it to me. If you don't know who Jenna Moreci is, because I haven't really heard about her talked on BookTube, but that's because she's an author on BookTube. Not BookTube. She's not an author on BookTube. She's an author on AuthorTube? Is that right? She is an author who has a YouTube channel and basically gives out writing advice, and she is freaking hilarious. She swears a lot, mature adult content, let's say, but she is so great, and I love her. And her book, oh my god, like, I've read one of her books before which was good, but this one, it blew it out of the water. It's perfect. It's the first in a series again. I'm crying because the ending was a big plot twist, and now I have to wait, and anyway, it was so good. The characters were just perfect. There's a love story in it which is one of the most melting love stories I've ever read. I was a puddle. They were like, I've never shipped a couple so hard in my life. There was death, there was sex, there's a lot of swearing in this book. This is an adult book, let me make that clear. There is a lot of mature things happening, mature sexy things happening. It's not an erotica, but it is very, you know, there's a lot of violence and a lot of sexual referencing and swearing. You get used to the swearing because on the first page it's like, wow, I've never read a book with so many swear words. But you get used to it quick. Just the whole book is great. I never saw any of this stuff coming. The plot twist I did not see coming. There was so much action. It was paced perfectly. I love the story. The cat just so good. Like, Jenna Moreci has a lot of love on YouTube, not from BookTube, but from other places on YouTube, and that is not misdirected because she is amazing and I love her, and this book is deserving a place in the honourable mentions because it's so good. And hey, maybe when the rest of the books are out, it might go up into that favourites list. You never know, and my god, I hope so, because oh, it's so good. So that was my list of favourite books and my honourable mentions. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you love and enjoyed these books as much as I did. I hope you've maybe got some new recommendations that you've not heard about before, and you can love these books too, and we can talk about them, and yes. And I hope we can talk about them in the comments. Please let me know which ones have you read, which ones haven't you read, is there any you got opinions on that you want to talk about, because I'm happy to talk in the comments, and I hope you're all ready for a discussion, because these books need love. I love them, and I hope you guys will love them, or do love them as much as I do. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in another video. I might update this one when the list, you never know, the list might change. The list has stayed this way for a while, so it's going to take something pretty drastic to change it. But for now, that's my list of favourites, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye!